Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another very interesting knife overview / review to share with you guys. This is the Benchmade Tengu Flipper Gold Class. Not too many Gold Class Benchmade knives on this channel. We're going to talk all about this. First of all, I know that there are a whole bunch of people who clicked on this video just to go down in the comment section and scream, overpriced, overpriced. Calm down. We expect to see that stuff. It's not like anybody here is like, oh gosh, I don't know what to think about this and I need someone to tell me that they think that it's overpriced. There is an overabundance of people who look at stuff like this, specifically Benchmade Gold Class items, right? And immediately, without looking at any other element of the knife, have to scream overpriced in the comment section. Spare us. Spare me. I know. And you know what? I agree with you, but I'm going to put a little bit more detail into this and kind of explain why I think there's a market for this and why some people justify this stuff. And, I'm going to put a little bit more mental effort into it than just pounding into a keyboard and yelling, right? But you know what? Feel free. That's what my comment section's for in some cases, right? Stuff's going to be down there either way. Thanks so much to Ryan for sending this in for review. I appreciate that. And thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon right down below. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. We're going to fly through the specs here real quick because I really just want to talk about this knife. Overall length, and by the way, you can buy this right now. It's very expensive, but I will link it down below. It's definitely available. Overall length coming in at 6.5 inches overall. Blade length is under 3 inches, about 2.9. So if you live in an area with a 3-inch blade lock, that's nice. Cutting edge is coming in at something like 2.65 inches overall. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. You can see here it's closer to the size of the Rat 2. This is definitely not a large knife. I would absolutely call it a smaller knife. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3? Definitely closer to the size of the Para 3, but still way shorter. And last but not least, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Bug Out. The Bug Out actually looks kind of gigantic next to the Tengu Flipper. We'll go ahead and do carry profile. And by the way, if you like how this looks, right, and you don't know, there's a way less expensive version of this. Like, Gold Class knives are basically they're production Benchmade knives with a little bit more work that goes into them. There's still, this is still largely a production knife. This is, as far as I understand the way that these are done, they might be hand checked, maybe, but as far as like production of these things goes, it is production, right? But there is a lesser version of this with standard materials. I think S30V and like G10, maybe it's carbon fiber. I'm not really sure, but it's less than half the price. So you're welcome to check that out. I'm sure it'll be linked right down there below where you can take a look at it. Thickness, it's a little bit thinner than the Spyderco Para 3. As far as carry profile goes, that's where this thing is going to shine. Definitely easier to carry than the Spyderco Para 3 or PM2, no matter how you look at it. It's just thinner. Materials, we're looking at a white and black marble carbon fiber, which some people are going to look at and go, wow, I love it. And other people are going to go, ew, gross. It looks like a Rorschach to me, right? The other cool thing here, or something that's just kind of interesting, is the backspacer is, it glows in the dark. Let me put some power into this here. But yeah, the backspacer glows in the dark, which is kind of neat. Sorry, I'm trying to get my flashlight out of it, right? Do you need that? Does it serve some sort of tactical advantage? No. But, I mean, let's be honest here, guys. I would say the vast majority of the stuff that I show on this channel, stuff that is far more like dollar for dollar, more practical when we're talking about knives. Just kind of a, like, I'm kind of checking myself here. It's still unbelievably overkill. A lot of people would say anybody who spends more than $50. In fact, I'll tell you, as a content creator who receives literally 50,000 comments a year or more, the most common comment that I get is nobody ever needs to spend more than $50 on a pocket knife. So, while it's like I understand where that comes from. I don't necessarily agree. We are definitely so far into overkill territory that, you know, I would say half the people making those comments right now, even if they don't say $50, right? If they're carrying a $200 knife right now, they're probably also carrying something that is massively overkill, right? As far as materials and function, all that stuff right there. So that being said, I kind of think that the glow-in-the-dark backspacer thing is cool. And that's a lot of what this is going to be. It's just appreciation for the object, because let's be real here. This is pocket jewelry, and I think everybody who's watching right now knows that. The people who own this knife know that. They didn't necessarily spend the money thinking that every dollar that went into it was serving some type of utilitarian benefit, right? It's just, oh, I like that, right? That's what most of us do when we buy a knife. We pay money for stuff that we like, right? Whether it serves a purpose, a specific purpose or not. Sometimes it's just bringing us joy, right? So that's the element that the backspacer is bringing to the table here. Truthfully, I don't like how the scales look, but it's going to be to each their own kind of situation. The hardware is all titanium, which is different from the standard version. The liner lock is titanium, and the blade is Damasteel, not Damascus, proprietary Damasteel, which is PMC 27 and RWL 34, if I am not mistaken. Both powder form steels created by the Damasteel company. Yielding performance that is similar to CPM 154, but you get this cool pattern, and it will definitely perform a lot better than most standard. Like if you buy a Civivi knife in Damascus, it definitely performs much better than that. In fact, that's the same Damasteel that is on my, where is it? Here it is. My Sharp by Design Evo Typhoon is also in Damasteel. That is a steel that I like, but I appreciate it not because I think that it is better performing than every other steel out there. No, it's because it's beautiful and I just really appreciate the pattern, right? It's, again, a lot of what I'm saying right here. We have a little, what appears to be blue G10 on the shield there, so that's kind of neat. This, weirdly, does not have a pocket clip, and truthfully, I'm not sure if the original has a pocket clip or not, but it doesn't, so whatever. What do we need to do here? We need to measure the blade stock thickness real quick, and we also need to weigh it. Blade stock thickness of this knife is coming in at, I'm going to try to grab this. This is why there's tape on these calipers. People comment, why is there tape? So that I don't scratch this stuff. About 120 thousandths there, so nothing crazy. And the weight on this guy, it probably weighs something like 2.5 to 3 ounces. That would be my guess. Yeah, 2.65 ounces, so there you go. Ratios are pretty good. As per usual, we're not even going to do the hardware check because I'm not going to take a chance and mess up that hardware. T10 on the pivots and T6 for the body screws. If you have to take this apart, we've got some Chicago ends over here, right? Then there you go. It shouldn't be really that difficult. So yeah, Benchmade has done a lot of gold class knives in the past. Love them or hate them, what appears to be the history of this stuff is that they become incredible collector's items. And a lot of the people who pick them up know that. They do not always appreciate in value. And judging by the availability of this one, it might not be destined for the same, you know, increase in value over time. But a lot of them, if you look on eBay, so there's some really rare gold class knives. And these are all, you know, these are made in large quantities. They are not made like a true custom knife where there's like a batch of 10. Benchmade is a large-scale production company who can produce this stuff in, you know, large quantities. And, you know, there's going to be people agreeing with that, not agreeing with that, and they create, you know, a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's artificial scarcity, and they hype these things up, and they're overpriced. Okay, you know, this is as simple as I can put it. The existence of this thing is not hurting you. Unless somebody, you know, forces you to take, in this case, $550 out of your bank account and spend it on this item, which you clearly do not want. So if you don't want it, you can simply not buy it and then go on with your life. There's lots of stuff. If this bothers you, oh man, there's a ton of stuff in the knife world that is just going to salt your undergarments. It's going to ruin your life, right? So if you're not aware, this is hardly the most offensive thing that exists in the knife world, right? It's not even close, right? So I'm doing my best to mitigate the, the damage that is inevitably going to fill my comments section. But it's just one of those things where it exists. So what? Marble carbon fiber like this, yeah, it's definitely a more expensive handle material. I think it's safe to say titanium is going to cost more than steel for the hardware. The blade, definitely. Diamond steel, yeah. Take a look at Riot, a company that manufactures knives out of China. Now, you may not agree with their price progression between an M390 model and a Damasteel model, but you can see a $150 difference in price generally just for a Damasteel blade. And that's not just with companies like Riot. That's generally the case with everything. Look at Benchmade's custom shop. Again, a lot of people say, well, you're using Benchmade, an example of a company who generally has stuff that the vast majority of the community considers overpriced, right? To sort of scale. Anybody making knives, if you ask for Damasteel, it's going to cost quite a bit more money. From what I see, about $100 to $150 more. The standard price of the Tengu is, I can't remember, something like $200. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a little less, maybe a little bit more, right? You add $150 to that. Let's say it's 175, right? So 275 plus another 50 is $325. So how do they add another $225 to this? It's certainly not going to be in the titanium hardware and the carbon fiber, I suppose. It's just you're paying a premium for the gold class nature of these knives and sort of the collector element there. Do I think this knife is worth $550? No, if I'm going to spend $550 on a knife, it's not going to be on something like this. I'm going to be looking for some type of special edition hinderer or something like that, right? But there are plenty of people who specifically go after Benchmade Gold Class knives because of the history with them. And I think they're fully aware that they are paying a premium for them. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Ryan knew that himself, the gentleman who picked up this knife. Or maybe he just really, really likes how it looks, right? I think generally speaking, it's really hard to say with Benchmade Gold Class knives whether or not you are overpaying because so many of them have appreciated in value. Not all of them, right? If you're just judging the knife on the materials that are implemented, right, and the cost of producing it, then yeah, you're overpaying. But there are so many different perspectives to look at. This here. A type of knife that I consider to be truly overpriced is a knife that is not special in any way, shape, or form to the enthusiast or the collector. It's just a generic knife that's meant it's a production knife that's meant to stay in production forever. Something like, I'm not saying the PM2 or Para 3 right now are overpriced because they're using S45VN now, and I think that's a little bit better. But a knife like that's produced in it's just meant to always be there, right? If all of a sudden, a knife like that, they increase the price by 50% for no reason, right? Like when like the S30V variants of the PM2 and Para 3, when they bumped those up by 30 or 40 bucks, I was like, whoa, those are like straight up overpriced because there's no benefit here at all for the end user is just paying more money for materials that you can get, somewhere else for less money, even if it's the same country of origin for manufacturing. And the enthusiast and collector, there's no value there because there's no reason to collect this, right? This has, a different value, different elements added into it. For the end user, no, right? If you're just like, I just want a good pocket knife I'm going to use, no. There's no reason to spend $550 on this. These are meant as collector's items, right? As part of a tier through Benchmade knives that generally in the past, has yielded very, very sought after collector's items. It's like whether it frustrates you or not, no matter what your emotional response is to it, there are Benchmade Gold Class knives that have more than tripled in value over time, which is to the benefit of the people who bought them. Am I in support of people buying knives to take them out and flip them and profit? Well, no, but it just is the case. That's why, right? So when we question value, whether or not we agree with it, whether or not we like it, is it simply factually the case, right? I think I'm getting really really salty and really throwing my opinions out there, but I think a lot of people, we live in a time period where people believe if they disagree with something enough, they can force it to not exist. No. It still exists. It just is what it is. What's happening with some of this stuff is just what's happening. So when people say, I don't understand the value, well, this is the value. This is the draw sometimes to this type of stuff for some type of people. There are definitely knives out there that have more handwork, right? Taking these exact same materials, a maker that cannot make something to, like, because this is, for example, number 1161. It's very different from a guy in his garage with some machines, right? And some benches and stuff like that, some belts, taking raw materials and the exact same raw materials, some titanium, this type of carbon fiber, and the damaged steel, and then physically turning it into this exact same object. And maybe they're only able to make 5 or 10, in which case it would be much more than $550. It would cost a lot of money to do that, right? So it's not as simple as just looking at something and looking at, you know, a company like Benchmade and looking at something like this and just immediately like, overpriced. I mean, yeah, it is, but there's more that goes into it. And I'm saying this for the benefit of newer people. And you are being exposed to my opinion here. I'm not throwing any of this out there as fact, right? It's just, I remember being newer in the knife world and not having a lot, like, a lot of what I was subject to was the simple black and white of things, right? It's either like, this make people happy or this make people angry, right? And it's just like, it's just, people led me to believe that everything was so much more simple, right? The things were just black and white, good or bad. When in reality, there's just a lot more to consider, right? I can guarantee that the people who did buy this don't give a crap about what anybody else thinks. The types of people who buy knives like these are not bothering themselves with the opinions of the YouTube comments section under a video like this. They're just not going to. They're going to pay for something like this, and then they're going to probably just enjoy it. They're just going to sit there and enjoy it for themselves, right? I get that. I have a lot of knives in my own collection that I know are overpriced, and I enjoy them for the exact same reason. All right, I subject myself to the opinions of everybody, you know, who's going to watch the video, and I know that. I know that there's going to be people who disagree with me. In fact, I'm fully aware that there's going to be a ton of people who are lit up by everything that I've said or some of the things I've said in this video, and I'm going to be dealing with that stuff down in the comment section, but that's fine, right? There's a lot of stuff that I pick up and I show, and then, you know, and then I just am like, whatever, I'm just going to enjoy it because this is something that brings me happiness. So I don't think, that being said, now that we're at 17 minutes, if you're still here, I don't think this was Benchmade's best gold class knife. In fact, I don't think the Tengu is a very good knife. And while we haven't really talked about the knife itself, it's because this is such a dressy version of it that it seems silly to discuss utilitarian elements, but ergonomically, this thing is a rectangle. It's an uncomfortable rectangle at that because the flipper tab is angled down, giving you very little room to actually hold onto the knife. There's no cutout to engage the liner lock, which means you have to push straight down into it and pinch your thumb, right? The flipping action's good. It doesn't have like, oh my gosh, fall shut action, but the action's good enough. The detent's good. It's nice and snappy, right? It does what you'd expect to do. The blade profile isn't anything spectacular, right? It's just a tanto. The edge is relatively thin. It's definitely going to cut. And damaged steel is going to be a nice performance-oriented steel, given that it performs almost exactly the same as CPM 154, which in my opinion is still one of, if not the most well-rounded steels out there. Yeah, it's going to be fine. Easy to strop up, easy to sharpen. It's going to have decent edge retention, great toughness, great corrosion resistance, all of that stuff, right? Fit and finish on this is incredible. As far as the Benchmade Gold Class knives that I have handled, everything is always perfect, and that's what makes me believe that there's a little bit more human element that goes into these. Maybe they are hand-assembled or hand-tuned, like Rick Hinder knives. I don't know. But everything about this knife, as far as the fitment of things, or hardware placement, hardware seating, blade play, centering, all that stuff is absolutely perfect. And I think that's probably what you can expect, and it's what you should expect if you're going to spend more than $500 on a Benchmade Gold Class knife. They're not always the same. If you're new to the Benchmade Gold Class, I mean, it's basically just take a model, whether it's seemingly popular or not in Benchmade's line, And instead of the standard materials that are offered, it's something completely and totally different. Sometimes it's not Damascene steel, it's just a higher end steel with a special finish on it. We have handle materials they've used in the past, like titanium. They've used various inlay stuff. They've done like wild, weird inlaid designs and texturing, and they've done different types of anodizing. It's just all over the place, right? And like I said, some of them appreciate and value wildly. So the people who did pick them up reap the benefits once, you know, other people decide they want them and it's too late. Again, whether you agree with that or not is neither here nor there. I don't like the idea of people buying stuff and then flipping it, but it happens, right? That's where the value comes from for some people. This is not Benchmade's best gold class knife. It's not something that I would ever spend this much money on. I'm not interested, but I am definitely not above spending $500 or even over $1,000 on a pocket knife if it's going to bring me joy. That's the final say. It's not how many likes does this get on Instagram. Ooh, so many people like it. It's suddenly worth more to me. I don't care about that. If I see something on the internet, you know, based on what I've handled, what I've experienced, that appears to be a knife that's going to function really well, that's going to have good tolerances, that's made in a way that I approve of, right? Especially if it's made in the United States, that's already worth a lot more money to me. And it's got materials that I like. It has an aesthetic presentation that brings me joy. If all those check boxes together, the value goes up and up and up and up. It doesn't matter if I've got 10,000 people disagreeing with me. I'm still going to buy it if I like it, if I think it's going to bring me happiness. And I'm happy to say that a lot of my recent purchases that have been a little bit overpriced have brought me that joy, and that's why they've remained in my collection. This has been a wild, rambly, crazy episode, but I hope that I'm not going to say I've hoped that I've changed people's minds. I think it would be silly to assume that I've changed anybody's mind. Whatever the mindset you were coming into this video, it's likely that you kept the same mindset, but I hope that I've given you a little bit more to think about as far as why some people decide to pick them up. And especially, I mean, if you've ever assumed that, you know, leaving your opinion will change somebody's mind, like the person who bought it, right? If you're just trying to like bring them down, don't do that, because who are we to judge, right? This is Ryan's knife. It's bringing him joy. So, and I'm sure that it will continue to bring him joy. Not my favorite. Definitely something that I consider to be overpriced, but that doesn't really matter, right? Different kind of episode, different kind of review, absolutely. In any case, I hope that it was at least mildly entertaining. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.